Okay, everyone. I am truly honored today to be joined by Emmy Award winning and Academy Award nominated director and writer and showrunner of Veep and Avenue 5, Armando Iannucci. How you doing today, Armando?
I'm very good. I'm self-isolating. I'm living in the attic in my house. I came into contact with someone who tested positive, so the
Oh,
rule over
man.
here in the UK is that I now have to I now have to keep to myself for 14 days.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
it's just nice to talk. It's just nice to talk to someone, really.
Well, I hope you stay safe and I hope the best for you.
No, I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling okay, but
Okay, good. So,
I'm on day 4 here. Yeah.
well, at least during your quarantine self-isolation, you have this big now digital release of your newest film that you've directed and co-wrote, The Personal History of David Copperfield. So my first question about this film, Armando, is why now in your career did you decide to do something on a Charles Dickens novel? What was kind of drawing you to this?
Several things. I've always been a huge and lifelong fan of Charles Dickens. I think we have him down in our head as someone who was a sort of long-winded Victorian novelist who wrote stuff about fog and mud and child's poverty. Whereas in fact, he's really very, very funny. Very funny. And actually quite modern. And there's something about this story in itself, David Copperfield, which is very modern. It's about someone growing up wondering whether they fit into society, what people make of him. I think we'd have phrases like status anxiety and imposter syndrome to describe it now, but, this is what was going through him in the 1840s. It felt to me like a very modern kind of experimental novel. It's all seen through David's own eyes, and, it starts with him as a baby. In a chapter of words of kind of like one sentences of one word and words of one sentence trying to describe smells and shapes and people's faces and things like that. A lot of Dickens adaptations very reliant. They kind of emphasize the plot and they don't pay attention to the comedy or to the imagination or to the language and the great fantastic dialogue and amazing characters. And I wanted to do something like that, and I wanted to make something that felt also hopeful. It's a very hopeful story. It's about love and affection for those who look after you and those who protect you. And it's about a celebration of sense of community. And so I just felt this is something that feels that I want to make for now, really. And it's a film I want all generations to feel to get something out of. When it came out in the UK, we had a lot of whole families going to see it and different generations taking something different from it. But wanting to discuss it with each generation in the family.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because you're talking about different generations watching it too, and that's what I was going to wonder about, like the PG rating, right? Can you kind of go into kind of the decision making for that and the kind of the pros and cons you faced with doing a PG film?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a decision. I wanted to make something that was true to the book, but the book is something that I think appeals to all generations. I also wanted to make a film where you weren't required to know anything about the book or have read it or whatever. It's just there as an entertainment. I felt it was important that everyone felt they could come and see the film. It's not a children's film. It's a film that children and teenagers and then adults of all generations and ages will get something from and can connect with. And therefore, I thought it was important that we didn't... there's no swearing and such in it, which there is a little bit of in The Death of Stalin and in Veep. Because it didn't need it. It didn't require it. It didn't feel like that was the kind of world that I was showing, really. I wanted to do something that felt almost kind of magical in a kind of theatrical way, in that, if things visually happen in an unusual way on screen, I didn't want to do them with CGI and kind of special effects like that, because I think they're no longer magic. I think we're so used to them that they don't surprise us. So whenever there was something that visually had to happen that was special, I wanted to do it for real. We try to construct it in a way that it physically happened in front of you. So, backdrops fall and suddenly you're on a cliff or you're transported somewhere else, or by the use of a mirror, you suddenly see something, all these things that again, I think, again, going by the reaction to it in the UK, families have responded to in a way that they haven't to CGI.
No, yeah, for sure. And also, like, a reaction I've seen to the film so far is a lot of people are talking about the casting choice. In particular, you know, you didn't go with all white actors in this Victorian piece. It's a bold choice, and I think it's a great choice. And also having Dev Patel as David Copperfield, who's an older actor playing a younger David Copperfield. So what's your case for these decisions against the naysayers who may say, oh, that's not totally historically accurate or not what they want to see? Like, what do you combat that with?
Well, I mean, historically accurate, it's a fiction. It's
right.
a novel. It didn't actually happen.
Right.
I want people watching the film to see themselves in the film. I want the characters in the film to feel that they're living in their present day. It might be 1840 in the film, but for them, that's the present. So they should feel alive. I could only think of Dev to play David. He, for me, embodied the spirit of David Copperfield. You know, the comedy, the tragedy, the romance, the charisma, the pratfalls, the visual comedy, the impressions that he did, the mimicry, the romance, everything. Dev, for me, was David. And I really didn't think about the fact that he, you know, is from an Indian background. He just felt to me he embodied the character. And once Dev said yes, I thought that's how we should cast everyone. You know, find the person who fills the character.
Right.
And this is something that's been going on in theatre for decades now. And I don't know why film is so literal. If we are going to still make films set in the past as a sort of period drama industry, for goodness sake, we have to be able to cast from 100% of the acting talent that's out there. Right. We can't be saying to a whole group of actors, sorry, this isn't for you. And you mentioned that people are talking about the casting. It's interesting. People talk about the casting before they see the film, and after they've seen the film, they don't talk about the casting because they feel that the people they've seen on screen are naturally right for the part. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a really awesome answer. And I think you make such an awesome point too about how like theater's kind of ahead in this, where like for some reason film, like you said, it's so literal and I don't understand, but this is good that you're making a film that's breaking those barriers more and more. So that is commendable. So another thing too I wanted to ask you is, you've written so many things in your career and you're such a talented screenwriter, but do you still find in doing an adaptation things you connect in the story to your own personal views and what comes from Armando?
Absolutely. What drew me to this was it's about someone, you know, it is personal, and it's about someone growing up, trying to work out who they are, and in the end, they realize they're a writer. And, you know, I've spent most of my career thinking, yes, but this isn't my real job, is it? You know, I mean, you know, I'm feeling almost kind of, you know, embarrassed that I'm getting through life doing something that I really enjoy, and that, you know, at some point I ought to sit down and do a proper job, and then realizing, no, this is my proper job. You know, this is actually what I've been doing for the last 30 years, so I might as well accept it.
Right.
So that appealed to me, as well as, you know, reconnecting me with my, you know, early love of Dickens and his kind of. Actually, I think when you read early Dickens, he's a precursor to Charlie Chaplin, really. You know, by the age of 24, Dickens was the most famous writer in the world. Okay. You know, in America, they would wait down in the harbor for the new monthly editions of his novel to come in because they were desperate to find out what happened next. And same with Chaplin. Chaplin went over to America, and by the age of 23, 24, he was the most famous man in the world, basically. You know, everyone knew Chaplin. And what he did with looking at the, you know, the common individual, stories of poverty against riches and society and, you know, modern times and, you know, the big themes, but the little guy in the middle of it are so Dickensian, really. So Chaplin and Dickens are part of the same kind of tradition, really.
Yeah, and I totally see that connection. And with us as the audience watching this film and seeing a connection now, a blend of Dickens, but with Armando Iannucci's spin on it, if you're looking at it as a whole and what you directed and what you wrote, what would you say is the one thing this film is trying to say?
Oh, heavens. It's, well, first of all, it's an entertainment. I hope people just leave feeling, at the end of it, feeling a lot happier about themselves and about those they love, really. It's a celebration of community. So there's that. If it also encourages them to go away and read the book or to read about the time or just to read, then that's great.
Right.
But it's fun about that. I want people to feel good about themselves, really, especially if they've had to experience adversity or if they've felt for one way or another they don't quite fit in. See that as a plus. See that as a mark of being kind of their individuality, really.
Yeah, I love that. I totally feel that after I watched the film, and it is good to see movies like this, especially in the times we're living right now, that are uplifting and give hope and for anything we're all facing as just people together. So I think it really is effective in that sense. So before I let you go, Armando, I wanted to ask, in your brilliant mind, is there anything you got brewing coming up that we can look forward to, or any plugs you want to put in before I let you go?
Well, we're about to start shooting season 2 of Avenue 5.
Awesome.
So very much affected by the last 6 or so months we've all been through.
Right.
Those themes of isolation and madness will be coming through loud and clear in season 2 of Avenue 5. So that's the next thing that's brewing.
Awesome. And Armando, I can't wait for people to see this film today, everybody. It is out for digital release, and it's also still playing in many theaters, so make sure to check it out. It is definitely worth the watch. Armando, I hope you have a great rest of your day and stay safe in your self-isolation. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.